Greetings, this is the Grumpy Old Slan, and today we're going to continue playing Le Château des Sortilèges, the very first French role-playing game published in the 4th issue of Jeux et Stratégie. So when we last finished, the party was right outside the castle and was about to enter it. Now, before I do so, I will change my marching order. So formally, my fighter was in the lead, followed by the cleric, then the magic user, and the thief in the rear guard. However, in the castle, the leading character, if it's the thief, can check for traps. I will put my thief in front, followed by the fighter, then the magic user, and the cleric in the rear guard position. This will allow the thief to check for traps, the fighter to back him up if there's an encounter, and the cleric will be the rear guard in case they choose to flee a monster instead of confronting it. Let us start. Now we know that every room in the castle has a potential trap. So in order to find trap, we need to roll a 5 or a 6 on a d6. And we have failed to find the trap. So there might be one, there might not be one. We can now choose to not enter the room, go elsewhere, or risk it and enter the room, which is what we are going to do. We're still limited to 2 movement spaces, which is 2 points. So in this room, we can get to the middle of it, but we can't get to the far end yet. Now we need to roll to find out what is in the room. And for this, we will roll a d6. And on a 2, we need to check for an encounter as though this was a triangle. So looking up the encounter chart, let us roll. And on a 1, there is no encounter. We will keep going, move forward. So just before entering, I want my thief to check for traps. And on a 6, he has found a trap. Now he can try to disarm it. And again, we roll a d6. And on a 3 or higher, the trap will be disarmed. And it's a 3. So the trap is disarmed. And we can safely enter the room. Now, safely enter is a relative term because I still need to roll for an encounter. First roll. It's a 5. On a 5, we need to roll on the encounters table for a square. Let's do that. And that's another 5. I need to pull 2 tokens out of the bowl. Let's stir these up. Okay, here. So we have 2 tokens. One is a goblin and the other one is a weapon. The goblin has 2 hit points. It will do 1 to 3 plus 1 points of damage. It has a movement rate of 1 and an armor class of 3. So the thief and the fighter, the blue die for the thief, the orange one for the fighter, will attack it. So the thief hits but the fighter misses. So we'll roll a d6 for damage. And on a 4, the thief manages to dispatch the goblin. Now our treasure is a weapon, so we'll need to roll on the magical weapons table to determine what it is that we have found. And on a 4, we have a +2 sword. So let's put this back in. So we will choose to give the sword to our fighter, since he's probably the one best equipped to use it. However, magic swords are powerful, and we need to roll the dice to see if the fighter can control his sword. So on a 2 or higher, nothing happens, everything is fine. But on a 1, the sword will take over the fighter and attack his fellow party members. So we roll a 6, and so the fighter manages to control the sword without a problem, and we can keep exploring. Now before entering this room, I'm going to have the thief check for traps. He's found one, so he will attempt to disable it, and he manages to disable it. Now, in this room is a magic fountain. So the first thing we need to do is determine who will have a taste of the water in the fountain. And I'm going to choose the cleric. We will roll a d6, and we determine that it is a healing potion. And so anyone who drinks it will be able to recuperate some hit points. Our fighter will do so since he's still at 7 hit points. He's not at full health. So he drinks, and we roll a d6 to determine he recovers 1 hit point. Now, I could have him drink again. However, that means rolling on the encounters table again, which I just realized I did not do. So let's do so right away. On a 5, I need to roll for a square. And on a 3, nothing happens. So it's all good. My group will keep going, and the thief will check for traps in the next room. He finds none, so the group decides to head into the room anyway. Now we roll to see if there's an encounter. On a 5, we need to roll an encounter for a square. 5, I need to pull 2 tokens out of the bowl. So I have a giant and a sphinx. Okay, so the giant has 12 hit points, a movement rate of 3, will do 1 to 6 points of damage, and has an armor class of 4. The sphinx has 6 hit points, a movement rate of 0, it doesn't move. It will do 1 to 6 points of damage, and has an armor class of 3. My characters will attempt to flee, especially since the Sphinx has a movement rate of 0. That should be easy enough. Now the mechanics for fleeing are easy. We roll a d3 to determine our movement rate while fleeing, and if it is equal to or larger than the monster's movement rate, we have escaped the monster. But we do have to move our token to determine where we ended up. I move 2, and I will flee further into the castle. That's 1, and that's 2. Now the Sphinx can't follow, but we do have to fight the giant because its movement rate was 3, and it's managed to catch up. And it will be hitting first, and it hits the rearmost character, who's the cleric. So he will need a 4 or higher to hit the cleric. And he hits, doing 2 points of damage. So my cleric's down to 4 hit points. Now, however, the characters can fight back, and it'll be the cleric and the magic user. And the magic user will choose to cast Sleep on the giant, which can be done in addition to attacking with his dagger. So the first thing we're going to do is have the blue die for the magic user, the orange die for the cleric, and they will both attack the giant. And the magic user misses, and the cleric hits. The cleric will do 1 to 6 points of damage. And he only does 1, bringing the giant down to 11. Now the magic user can cast Sleep. Now the way to cast is we need to roll a d6, and on a 5 or 6 the spell is successful. And it's a 4, so the giant has managed to make a saving throw and not fall asleep. Now the magic user will not be able to cast any spells for 5 turns, so we need to track that. It is now the giant's turn to attack again, and he misses the cleric with a roll of 3. Now the fighter and the thief can attack, and they will both miss. We start the next round with, again, the magic user and the cleric attacking, both missing. The giant will again attack the cleric, missing. The thief and the fighter will now attack. The thief will miss, but the fighter hits. And the fighter has a +2 sword, which means he will do +2 points of damage. And he does 3 points of damage, which means the giant now has 8 hit points. It is the start of the next round. Again, the magic user and the cleric will attack. The cleric will hit for 2 points of damage. The giant is now down to 6. The giant now attacks. The cleric will miss again. And it's the fighter and the thief's turn. The fighter hitting again. Wow. For 6 points of damage, plus 2 is 8. The giant had 6 left, so he is now dispatched. We can get rid of these 2. We ran into a new room, so now we need to roll to determine if there is an encounter. It's a 1, so we need to roll the encounter table for triangles. And on a 3, nothing happens, so the characters are safe for the moment. Now the cleric, having taken damage and the fighter not being back at full health, the cleric will elect to cast a healing spell. To do this, we need to roll a 5 or a 6 to see if the spell was successful. And it's a 4, so the characters are not healed. Because we took an extra turn in the room, we need to roll to see if there is an encounter. And on a 3, I need to roll for a triangle. And on a 4, nothing happens, so we're safe. Now the room the party is in has another fountain in it, so we will roll to find out what's in the fountain. And again, the cleric will test the waters in the fountain. A 5, so it is a healing potion again. So the cleric will drink some in an attempt to heal himself. We roll a dice, and he heals 2 hit points. And the fighter will do the same, and he will regain his missing hit point. You cannot exceed your maximum hit points by drinking healing potions. The party will continue its exploration of the castle. The thief will check for traps before they enter the next room. He finds none. We roll to see what's in the room. On a 6, the trap that the thief didn't find activates. So let's see what it does. So to determine the kind of trap, we need to roll a d6. And on a 4, a rock slide tumbles on the leading character, who's the thief, and he will take 1 to 6 points of damage. And that's 4 points of damage for the thief, bringing him down to 2. The party is not made up of complete idiots. They know in the previous room there is a fountain with healing powers, and so they will head back to that room. That does mean risking another encounter. On a 2, we need to roll on the encounter table for triangles. And that's a 3, so nothing happens, leaving the thief able to drink some of the water and heals 3 points of damage, bringing him almost up to full health. They're going to be happy with that. The party will go back into the room where they were. Now we're going to roll for an encounter, but since the trap already activated, should we roll a trap, nothing would happen. On a 1, we need to roll on the encounter tables for a triangle. And on a 5, we need to pull 1 token out of the bowl. Stir this up a bit. Ooh, whoop. And we have a werewolf. The werewolf has 5 hit points. It will do 1 to 3 points of damage, has a movement rate of 1, and an armor class of 4, but it can only be hit by magic weapons. Luckily for us, our fighter has a magic sword, and the magic user can also cast spells that will affect the werewolf. Both will do this when their turn comes. First, the fighter will attack, and he will miss. Now the thief can attack, but it's useless to roll. We know he will miss since he doesn't have a magic weapon. Now the werewolf will counterattack, and he attacks the thief who was in the lead, but misses. Now the magic user will attempt to cast sleep. A reminder, he needs to roll a 5 or a 6. He rolls a 5, which means the sleep spell is successful, and now the werewolf is asleep for a full turn. The characters in the meantime can elect to approach it and dispatch it, which they will do. The thief will then check for trap before they enter the next room. He finds one, but fails to disarm it. At this point, we have two choices. We can enter the room and hope that we don't set off the trap, or we can go another way. I will attempt to enter the room. We now roll. On a 5, we need to roll the encounter tables for a square. On a 6, we need to pull 3 tokens out of the bowl. So let's stir these up. 1, 2, 3. So we get an orc, a skeleton, and a potion. So the thief will attack the orc and the fighter will attack the skeleton. The fighter hits, but the thief will miss. And the fighter will do 5 points of damage. Remember, he has a +2 sword, and that will dispatch the skeleton. The orc will fight back, hitting the thief for 5 points of damage and killing him. Now the magic user and the cleric can counterattack. They will both miss, and we start the next turn. It's the fighter's turn to attack. He hits, and he will do 4 points of damage, killing the orc. Since we have found a flask, I'll have the magic user have a taste, see what it is. And on a 5, it is a healing potion. Now none of my characters need healing. I will, however, put an icon here to remind myself I have a healing potion. Not having a thief, the party cannot check for traps, so they have no choice but to enter the next room. Roll for an encounter. 2. We need to roll an encounter on the triangle. And nothing happens. The room we want to reach is the secret room to the north of the castle. Unfortunately, only the thief can open up the secret door, so we cannot enter it. And at this point, the party will go back to the village, hopefully safely, and maybe they can recruit a new thief before re-entering the castle itself. We will play this out in the next session. This has been the Grumpy Old Slan, playing Le Château des Sortilèges, the first French role-playing game, and I'll see you next time.